Okay, the story is super long today. I did not get to finish it with the other class, so we will finish it tomorrow. Okay, Mia, well, you're going to have to keep on trying, because right now, mine's probably not going to load either. You could have said that earlier, because I was not planning on sharing my screen, because then it slows everything down, and it's hard to go back and forth. So just keep trying. So it is called Hurricanes and the Science Behind Killer Storms. And remember, yesterday we talked about what we've already learned about, or what we not learned, but what we already know about hurricanes, like our schema, what is in our background knowledge of what we already know about hurricanes. So remember, this is an informational text. It gives us facts and examples. So this is a non-fiction text. So we're going to see real photographs in here. We're going to see a diagram in here. There's going to be science content specific words, all types of good stuff in this story, but it is rather long. So we need to make sure we are moving along quickly because it is a lot. Okay. So paragraph 1 says, or starts, you will not hear about hurricane disasters in Kansas or the Sahara Desert. Why am I not going to hear about a hurricane disaster in Kansas, Olivia? Nice and loud.
Because Kansas is a desert, and there's not much water by it, so they're probably not going to get a hurricane.
So Kansas is like an inland state. It's not on a coast, so it can't get it. And obviously the Sahara Desert we can't because there's a desert. Is there any ocean in the desert? No. So obviously we're not going to have any hurricanes there. Hurricanes not only need heat to form, but they also need moisture, lots of it. The warm ocean waters of the tropics are perfect for the birth of a hurricane. Meteorologists, Mia, go to the story, girlfriend. What are we doing? I'm already on page 1 reading. Blake, go to the story. Meteorologists, weather scientists, use the term tropical cyclone to describe any storm over the tropical ocean that spins in a circle around a center of low pressure. Tropical cyclones are known by different names depending on where they're from. If these storms develop in North Atlantic Ocean, the Northeastern Pacific Ocean, or the Gulf of Mexico, or the Caribbean Sea, they're called hurricanes. So we have hurricanes in the United States because where they're located. In the Northwestern Pacific Ocean, near Japan and the Philippines, hurricanes are known as typhoons. Near Australia and in the Indian Ocean, they are called cyclones. So depending on where you're at, is depending on if you call it a hurricane, a typhoon, and a cyclone. Guess what? They're all the same. It's just different. All places around the world, or even places in the United States, depending on where you're at, people call things a different thing. When I go to Walmart and I get my little thing that I put all my groceries in, what do you guys call that? A shopping cart. Well, if you go further into the South, a shopping cart is called a buggy. Someone will be like, oh, get a buggy. Like Mrs. Knife would never say get a buggy. I'd say get a shopping cart or get a cart. So just like how in the North we call pop, but in the South they normally call that soda. So depending on where you are in the world, you either call it a hurricane, a typhoon, or a cyclone. Guess what? All the same thing. They just have different names, and that's okay. A hurricane's life cycle. Dun, 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 dun. This is a subtitle right here. This reads a subtitle. So, a hurricane goes through a series of 4 stages as it grows. Tropical disturbance, tropical depression, tropical storm, and hurricane. Not all storms reach the higher stages. Tropical disturbance. Tropical disturbances form over warm tropical oceans with water surface temperatures at least 80 degrees Fahrenheit. The warm surface water evaporates, sending water vapor into the air. As the moist air rises, it cools. Some of the water vapor condenses into water droplets, forming clouds. Clouds pile up high into the atmosphere and thunderstorms develop. So a tropical disturbance, what makes it tropical is it forms over some type of tropical ocean, but it's basically a thunderstorm, nothing too big, okay? But how it formed over a tropical ocean is what makes it a tropical disturbance. The next stage, stage 2, is a tropical depression. As the warm, moist air above the ocean rises, it creates an area of low air pressure. Cool, heavier air from the surrounding area sinks, replacing the rising air. The cluster of thunderstorms join to form a single larger weather system. Soon, a whirlpool of hot, moist air is spiraling around a low pressure center. As the swirling winds turn, they gather more energy from the warm water below. The wind speed rises. If the wind reaches 38 miles per hour, the growing storm is ready for the next stage. So, a tropical depression, that's when it's a bigger than just a thunderstorm and it's windy, but once it hits 38 miles per hour, then it moves on to the next phase. But before we turn to the next page, let's look at the real photograph on the right side. So, this is an actual photograph. You can see that it is a Mia. What's up?
What's the difference between the two things that we just read?
Well, the difference would be one is basically just a thunderstorm, and the other is a bigger thunderstorm and how it forms. Okay.
Okay.
So, anyways, on the right there is a photograph, and it's a van, it's a car, but that's a van, so it's a little bit of a bigger vehicle. And in the back, you can see ginormous waves. Okay, it looks like clouds, kind of, but really those are humongous waves. It says, high waves crashed ashore in Shizuoka, Japan on September 6, 2007. As Typhoon Fito advanced towards Japan's main island of Honshu, these waves were part of Fito's storm surge. We're going to read more about storm surges in a little bit, but there's this lovely photo. Why do you think the author chose to put this photo in? With the car in it. Why didn't the author just it's kind of blocking the little view. Why did the author decide to put the car in there and not just have the waves? What do we think? Ethan, your hand was up first. Well, that's why the car is moving, yes, but why did the author choose this picture? Mark, what do you think?
To show a size comparison.
Yeah, exactly. The author chose, in my opinion, to put the car in here as a size comparison. That's a van, which means it's a bigger vehicle. And look how ginormous those waves are in the back. Oh my goodness. So the author chose to do that to show a size comparison. And then on the very bottom, it says, what does hurricane mean? The term hurricane comes from Huracan, the god of evil, named by an ancient Central American Indian group. Spanish colonists later changed the spelling to hurricane. First off, hurricanes don't bring much of good of anything, so it's named after the god of evil. This lovely hurricane is made to a hurricane. You may turn the page, and now we are going to read about tropical storms. Then tropical storms turn into hurricanes. So, tropical storms. The storm continues to grow stronger, and the winds blow faster. The strong winds draw up more heat and water vapor from the ocean surface, feeding the storm. Some of the water vapor condenses, producing heavy rain. Thunderstorms release heat, giving the storm even more power. Viewed from an airplane flying above, the clouds have a distinct circular shape. If the wind speed reaches 74 miles per hour, the storm has reached the last stage, a hurricane. So a tropical storm, it happens before a hurricane. And a tropical storm, the wind speeds of a tropical storm are between 38 miles per hour and 73 miles per hour. That's pretty fast. But as soon as the wind speed reaches 74 miles per hour, then it moves to the final stage, hurricane. All right? So, hurricane. The swirling winds of a hurricane surround the eye. I know we talked about yesterday in our live about an eye of a hurricane. Some of you guys already knew what that was. An area of warm, low pressure air at the center. This is a calm area that may be from 6 to 40 miles across. So the eye of the storm could be 6 miles, which would be 6 miles would be here to Wanata, in case any of you guys have ever been to Wanata. There's a Speedway and a Burger King that way. So that would be 6 miles would be Westville to Wanata, or it could be 40 miles. 40 miles is here to much farther away. But anyway, so the eye of the storm could be kind of small, but it could also be kind of big. It just depends.
Here to Kingsbury.
Yes. Well, no, it's farther than that. Kingsbury is probably only 15 miles. 40 miles would probably be
Chicago.
Chicago's 45 or 50 miles, I think. So not quite to Chicago, but a pretty good distance. 40 miles is a pretty good distance. But later we're going to find out how long an entire hurricane can be. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. So anyways, in the eye of the storm, it may be sunny with only light winds. To someone on the ground, it seems like the storm is over, but it is not. The strongest winds blow around the edge of the eye, called the eye wall. Bands of thick clouds called rain bands swirl outward around the eye wall. As the storm moves, the area that was below the eye suddenly gets stormy again. The eye band can produce more than 2 inches of rain per hour. 2 inches would be like this whole water right here. This little part I'm grabbing of my water bottle everywhere. 2 inches an hour. What can that cause, everyone? Flood. Yeah, it can definitely cause a flood. So if you're thinking, if you're stuck in the eye of the storm, people might think it's over because think, hurricanes are in a circular pattern, okay? So kind of think of a donut, okay? The first part of the donut is the cake part before we get to the hole, right? So the really, really bad storm, really, really bad, but I'm eating through my donut, and then I'm in the center. And that's the eye of the storm, and that's going to be where it's kind of calm. And once it's calm, you think, oh, it's over. But guess what? You still have more donut. So then you have to go through the whole backside of the hurricane. So it is not over in the eye of the storm. People just sometimes think that because it's gotten calmer. Yes, Landon?
I saw this one movie where they were in a hurricane and then the eye of the storm happened and then a bunch of lots of more water came.
Yeah. Yeah, they think, you might think it's over, but it's not. Ethan?
The good thing is, houses that live on a hill, so if we ever got hurricane or flooding. That's not possible.
Yeah, we can get flooding here, but we can't get a hurricane in Indiana.
Like, if we ever did, we could do it. Of course.
Mark, do you have a question, sir?
No, when I said Kingsbury, I meant Crown Point.
Oh, yeah, Crown Point. Yeah, that would probably be a good distance. Crown Point's about an hour away.
Yeah.
Crown Point's past Maryville, which is past the Maryville Mall. Crown Point's about a full hour from here. Mrs. Knightle? Chicago is farther than Crown Point, yeah. Crown Point's a bit too. All right, anyways, we got to get back to our story. Like I said, this is super long, and we only have so much time. And you do have a homework assignment. It's very short, though. Anyways, as the storm moves, the area that was below the eye suddenly gets stormy again. The rain bands can produce more than 2 inches of rain per hour. As it develops, a hurricane moves across the ocean. It usually travels northwest at the speed of 10 to 20 miles per hour. It may eventually reach the coast and move inland. As soon as a hurricane passes overland, however, its wind speeds drop. Remember, the warm ocean water supplies a hurricane with energy. The air over land area is cooler and drier, so the hurricane gets weaker. Soon it may just become a tropical storm and eventually die out. So that's how hurricanes end, because they eventually run out of energy because they're not able to get that warm, moist air from the ocean. Once they're inland, they can't get the same type of air, so eventually they die out. Olivia.
But that could take, I'm pretty sure hurricanes can last for up to 2 weeks.
Yeah, hurricanes can last up to 2 weeks. So it could take 2 weeks, but eventually, like a hurricane's not going to last forever. But it can take a very long time. Normally a hurricane averages 3 to 14 days, which we're going to read about in a little bit. So it can take up to 14 days for it to lose its power, but eventually it will lose its power. It just depends on how strong it is when it hits the coast.
That's way longer than
Yes.
tornadoes.
No, like on land. Right, yeah, they can last over water. I mean, they can build over water for a very long time. All right, so sometimes a hurricane may change course and move back over the ocean, picking up energy. It may later hit the coast again in a different spot with greater force. That is what happened with Katrina, which first hit Florida, then moved over the Gulf of Mexico to hit the Gulf Coast even harder. A hurricane can last an average of 3 to 14 days and travel as many as 4,000 miles. So a hurricane, of course, starts over the ocean. You know, it starts as a tropical storm and blah, 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 you know. Anyways, it gets to a hurricane, and it can last up to 14 days on land. And a hurricane can hit Florida, and then it can go back into the ocean, gain more and more energy, and then hit the coast again, which is what happened with Hurricane Katrina. I was alive during Hurricane Katrina, which really devastated Louisiana. So it hit Florida, went into the Gulf, and then it came and hit Louisiana and made a ton of damage. No. Hurricane Katrina was in 2005. So none of you guys were born yet. So why do hurricanes swirl around in a circle? This is a little sidebar, okay? So this is a sidebar on the right side of our page. It says, winds start blowing in a straight direction, but they curve because the earth moves as it spins on its axis. This is known as the Coriolis effect. The faster the winds blow, the more they curve. In a hurricane, Winds blow so fast they form spirals. In the northern hemisphere, the winds of a hurricane blow counterclockwise, which would be 12, 11, 10, 9, like this way. In the southern hemisphere, they move clockwise, which would be 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. So we are in the northern hemisphere, which means we're above the equator. So if we had a hurricane here, which we don't in Indiana, but if there was one, it would move counterclockwise, spin counterclockwise, which would be 12, 11, 10, yada, yada, yada. Yes.
Can't some people, like, if the hurricane's not that bad, survive in a hurricane?
Well, of course you can survive in a hurricane. Just because there's a hurricane doesn't mean you die. Because you can be inside a building, with your windows boarded up and stuff.
With tornadoes, you could die.
Yes.
Most likely.
You can definitely survive a hurricane. Definitely you can survive a hurricane, but you could also get hurt in a hurricane too. Where do hurricanes start? So below this, where the hurricanes start, is a nice graphic that was designed on a computer. This was not drawn by someone; it was designed on a computer, and it shows us some things. So let me read first. The winds that blow over the tropical oceans are typically easterlies, winds that blow from east to west. Thunderstorms that develop in low pressure areas disturb this wind flow, producing a wave-like movement. Meteorologists call this an easterly wave or a tropical wave. About 80% of hurricanes in the Atlantic Ocean start in easterly waves over Western Africa. So here, this little graphic, it says, the shaded areas show where hurricanes form. The arrows represent paths that they often take. The lighter color of ocean, the higher the surface temperature. So remember, hurricanes need nice warm water, so there's not really going to be hurricanes near the Atlantic, like, where the North Pole is, like the Atlantic, because it's really, really cold there. So the lighter the water, the more likely there is to be a hurricane. But all those little red arrows show, based off of data, where hurricanes normally travel. Okay, so if you look at those little red things, it just shows where hurricanes begin and the paths they often take based on data. Obviously, that is not the path it has to take. It's just based on data what they most likely take.
Can hurricanes go up to, like, Washington?
I suppose. I don't think it happens very often, but yeah, they could. But the water is getting colder that way, by Washington State on the coast. So, but I suppose. All right, turning the page to naming hurricanes. Fun fact. Every year, meteorologists use a special alphabetical list of names for hurricanes. Different lists are used for hurricanes in the Atlantic Pacific regions. The names are common first names in the language of the regions where the storms strike. So that means a typhoon by Japan is not going to have a name like John, okay? Because John is not a name that fits very well with Japan. It's going to have a more Japanese, more Asian name. Where here in America, the names we could of all of our hurricanes are words that are names that are common to North America, right?
Like Hurricane John.
Yeah. So hurricane names are retired, no longer used if a named storm causes a tremendous amount of damage or loss of many lives. Katrina, for example, will never be used again. So that was a really bad hurricane in 2005. So the name Katrina is never, as long as the earth is going, Hurricane Katrina, there won't ever be another one because how bad the damage was. Fun fact, Mrs. Kneifel, before I read this story last year, I thought there's a hurricane coming. Someone thinks of a name right then, right? I think of a name, whoever's in charge of that. But it turns out there's actually already a giant list, and the list is already made for the next few years. So you could find out what the 5th hurricane of 2022 is going to be named because it's already made, and that was a big bummer. Ethan. I have no idea, probably. Michaela, what's up?
Isn't there a hurricane named Hurricane Harley?
I think it was Harvey. And yeah, there's, literally, pick a name. There's probably a hurricane over it. I'm sure there has been. Anyways, okay, enough about the names. I just think it's interesting fact that the names are already made up and they're not you don't think of them as they come. I thought that was an interesting fact. All right. Are big hurricanes more powerful than small ones? Dun, 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 dun. Well, naturally, we think, bigger hurricane, it's going to be worse. But, dun, 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 not always. Hurricane Andrew hit southern Florida in 1992. It was the second most destructive hurricane in the U.S. history, but it was fairly small, measuring only 60 miles across, compared to the average hurricane, which covers an area of 300 miles wide. So the average hurricane is 300 miles wide. 300 miles is like here to Kentucky, okay? Like it's going to be maybe a little bit further. But here to Kentucky would be like 300 miles, 300, a little bit further into Kentucky would be 300 miles is the normal one. But the second worst one ever was only 60 miles wide. Bryden?
Actually, I actually wanted to say something about this, but now you kind of already answered.
Oh, sorry. Stole your thunder. All right. When is hurricane season? That's a good question because hurricanes don't necessarily happen all year round. We're going to read it. It's the thing. Don't be holding up your hands, you goofballs. Hurricanes usually form at a certain time of year, known as hurricane season. Since hurricanes need warm, moist air to form, they usually develop during the summer and autumn months. The Atlantic hurricane season is from June 1st to November 30th. The hurricane season for the Northeast Pacific is May 15th to November 30th. That's not to say a hurricane couldn't happen on December 1st. It's just very unlikely because they need that warm air. And even though it doesn't like snow in those areas, still the air isn't necessarily warm enough for a hurricane to occur, but it's not to say it couldn't. But the average, looking at all the hurricanes in the past, I don't know what you're typing, Landon, but if you're doing your homework now, that doesn't make Mrs. Knivel happy. But it's just to say that this is when they average are June 1st to November 30th, and then in the Pacific, May 15th to November 30th. Mia, what's up?
Every time a new hurricane happens, does it get a new name?
Yes. We already talked about
Like-
that. Hurricanes are named at each hurricane. If there's 14 hurricanes happening at once, they're all going to have different names. But hurricanes that are super, super bad, like Hurricane Katrina, the name Katrina will never be used again. Okay? But every hurricane gets a new name.
Okay.
Okay? Landon, what's up?
I think like the worst hurricane was like Hurricane Galveston.
I'm pretty sure it was.
Okay, we're not talking about the worst hurricane right now. And Eden, we already talked about how the eye of the storm is not the most destructive part. The eye of the storm is the calmest part. We already talked about that. The worst part of a hurricane is the eye wall, which is surrounding the eye. Olivia.
Do they name the hurricanes in alphabetical order, or do they just pick?
No, they go alphabetically. So it's like, this is pretend, but it would be like Andrew, Betsy, Carl, Destiny, you know, whatever. They do go alphabetically, and it doesn't matter the gender of the name, I don't believe. I think they just pick a name. Anyways, there's two pictures on the left side. So the first picture at the top says, this satellite image of Hurricane Katrina shows the storm centered over Louisiana, August 29, 2005. So you can see how ginormous this satellite image is. It literally looks like it's taking up the whole south of the United States, right? Like you can't even tell where all those states are, but it's absolutely huge. And then, so that's a satellite image, which means it's taken from above. And then the bottom image says this towering mass of white clouds is part of Hurricane Katrina's eye wall. Remember, the eye wall is the worst part. The area around the central eye. The strongest winds are found in the eye wall. The picture was taken on August 28, 2005 from a Hurricane Hunter airplane. So that means it's someone's job to fly around in an airplane and fly into a hurricane. Guess what? That's not going to be Mrs. Knifel's job. Sounds very dangerous. All right, please, you got to be a pilot first. Please turn the page. Next, there's just a picture here, and I think the author chose to use this picture because of one thing. I'll tell you in a second. So, a historic home was damaged September 24, 2005 by a tree downed by Hurricane Rita at Barksdale Air Force Base in Louisiana. So Hurricane Katrina hit in 2005 as well in August, and then this is Hurricane Rita in September of 2005. So I think the author decided to use this image because if you look at the tree, it doesn't look like lightning struck it and it broke in half, right? Like it's literally ripped from the ground. Like you can see like that bottom of the tree, and it looks like the wind just ripped it right out of the ground. So I think the author chose to use this picture because it shows how strong the winds are. Ethan.
At my old house, this happened on my whole backyard. We had this giant tree, and it was over the fence.
Oh man.
It almost took out a power line.
Wow, yeah, trees falling. I mean, some trees are really heavy. Like this obviously destroyed his historic home. How sad. So now we're going to read about when a hurricane hits. Dun, dun. All right. Every year, 80 to 100 tropical storms develop around the world. So not just here by the United States, but around the entire world. About 40 to 60 of them get strong enough to become hurricanes, typhoons, or cyclones. And only a few of those ever reach places where people live. So remember, there can be a hurricane over an ocean that never gets to land, which is good. Like, we don't want it to come to land and, people get hurt. So there's about 40 to 60 hurricanes, typhoons, and cyclones formed every single year, but few of them make it to land, which is obviously good. More hurricanes hit some regions than others. In the Northwest Pacific Ocean, for example, an average of 28 tropical storms occur each year. 19 of them become typhoons. In the Atlantic Ocean, however, an average of only 10 tropical storms develop each year, and 6 of them become hurricanes. Over a 3-year period, the United States coast gets hit on average of 5 times by hurricanes, and 2 of them are major hurricanes. When a hurricane hits land, no matter where, the side effects can be disastrous. But luckily, where we live in the United States, on average, so this is taking all the years they've been tracking it and, dividing it and all that crazy stuff. On average, we only get hit about 5 times every 3 years, which is great. That doesn't mean that's all it can ever be. There could totally be more, or there could be way less. That's just our average, which is, a good average. We don't want hurricanes to come and hit. Even no matter how few we get, no matter how small they could be, obviously they could still cause damage. Right, in?
The only slightly good thing about a hurricane striking is that scientists can study more about them and find out what ways are better to treat others than others.
Yes, Mia, we don't live by ocean, but I'm saying the United States as a whole because we live in the United States. And yeah, Bryden just said the only positive thing about a hurricane is each hurricane that comes, we get more data from it. Just like each earthquake that happens, we get more data from it. And then scientists, meteorologists, volcanologists, they all have more stuff to study and more things to learn about. So that is a positive out of hurricanes happening. But for the most part, obviously hurricanes are negative. So whipping winds is what we're reading next. Hurricanes' winds are extremely powerful. Out at sea, the winds can blow up to 200 miles per hour. That's really stinking fast. But remember, once they get inland, their power drops a little bit because they don't have that same moisture over the ocean, which is good. We don't want winds up to 200 miles an hour on the States. That would be crazy. Although the hurricane loses energy when it moves over land, the winds still cause a lot of damage. Strong gusts of winds rip huge trees out of the ground. They toss cars and people through the air. The wind can even turn small objects such as road signs or lawn chairs into deadly flying missiles. So that just means just a simple thing like a lawn chair. Well, if that's picked up by a storm moving 100 miles an hour, if you get hit by something moving 100 miles an hour, guess what? It could be really deadly, okay? So even tiny things picked up could be really deadly. That's why when hurricanes do come places, people secure their things that are outside, like any of their lawn furniture, they would bring it inside their house or their cars. They put them in garages and things. They would put their garbage cans in garages and stuff. They hide everything that is movable, basically. Hurricanes are especially destructive when they hit an area where many people live. Hurricane Andrew, for example, had winds of 165 miles per hour when it reached the coast of southern Florida in 1992. It passed through an area south of Miami that was filled with homes and businesses. Many of the buildings were mobile homes, which do not weigh as much as houses. They also were not very well anchored to the ground. So many communities, more than 90% of mobile homes, were completely destroyed. So this is just in my opinion, a little bit common sense. If a hurricane hits a town with only 10 buildings in it, maybe all those buildings aren't going to be destroyed because there's not a ton there. But if a hurricane hits a town with 400 buildings, guess what? This building falling is going to hit this building, and that's going to hit this building, and this is going to hit this building. So obviously, towns that are bigger with more people and more developed can be more hurt than a town that's less developed. Okay? Same with a tornado. If a tornado hits a town with only 10 people, hopefully those 10 people are spread out and they're okay. But if a tornado hits a town with 2,000 people, guess what? There's probably more likely to be damaged. Just because there's more people and there's more things to be damaged. Okay, so there, even if it's a super, super strong hurricane, by the time it would get to Indiana, it would be straight rain. It would never be, could be a bad storm, but it would never be an actual tropical storm or a hurricane because of how far away Indiana is. So we sometimes during hurricane season, we might get a lot of rain too as an effect of that, but it's nothing like a hurricane or a tropical storm or anything. It's just like a rainstorm. Okay, Mark? What's up?
Can hurricanes travel far?
Yeah, they can travel up to 4,000 miles, it said. So here on the next page, there's a picture at the top. This is a real life photograph. And it says, in August 1992, Hurricane Andrew caused massive destruction in southern Florida. Hundreds of thousands of homes and businesses were damaged and destroyed. So you can literally see this, I don't know if it was like a hotel or a giant house, apartment buildings or whatever, but literally the roof is like ripped off. Okay, like that stinks. Next part, storm surges. Even though a hurricane's winds are dangerous, people are most likely to die from a storm surge. The winds of the storm push ocean waters towards the shore, forming a huge wave. The low air pressure can also lift the water, rising the level even higher. These forces combined with normal ocean tides, forming a huge wall of water. Many hurricanes have produced storm surges more than 20 feet high. So there's just giant waves. And then obviously the waves can cause damage because they cause flooding. They could take your car off the road and you could get really hurt from it. A surging water smashes into buildings and washes out roads. The storm surge may also wash away beaches and remove soil around the foundations of houses. So storm surges, which happens because of hurricanes, very dangerous. Because that's a cause and effect thing. Remember, just like I don't know if it was last week or the week before, the earthquake caused a tsunami. So the hurricane causes storm surges. Fun fact. Oh, wait, not fun fact, but it's a fact. Hurricane Camille, which hit the Mississippi and Alabama coast in 1969, had the most powerful hurricane winds over land in United States history. They blew more than 190 miles per hour. So Hurricane Camille had the fastest winds. That doesn't mean it was the most destructive, but it had the fastest winds. And the last little part we're going to read today is called heavy rains. Hurricanes can cause serious flooding even without a storm surge. Their rain bands can dump 10 to 15 inches of rain in a 24-hour period. Bigger storms bring heavier rains, up to 20 inches or more. Such huge amounts of rainfall in a short amount of time can flood entire communities. Heavy rains can also cause mudslides. Rain mixes with the soil on mountains and hillsides and forms mud. The mud flows downhill. Rocks break free, adding to the mixture. As mudslides rushes down the mountain, it rips out trees, carries away houses. Down below, it buries everything in mud. Hurricane Mitch killed more than 10,000 people in 1998 due to mudslides caused by heavy rain. So in 1998, guess what? The hurricane isn't what killed people, all the mudslides after. So that's another cause and effect. Hurricane, what was the cause? Heavy rain. The heavy rain caused mudslide, which just killed people. And then here's just another real image. This is an actual photograph that says when Hurricane Floyd came towards the island, or towards land in 1999, its storm surge collapsed the pier at Daytona Beach, Florida. So the waves literally broke down the wood, the nails, the cement, like they just ripped it out. So we are going to stop there because that's where I had to stop with my other class, and we will finish our story tomorrow. But you do have a small homework assignment. Your homework assignment is due by 8 a.m. tomorrow. 8 a.m. tomorrow. Not kidding, 8 a.m. tomorrow, okay? Let me see if I can share it. It's on your Google Classroom, obviously. Regardless of which class you're in, it should already be posted. And it's asking you a question that we read from the story. So every single one of you should have the right answer. In fact, if you don't have the right answer, Mrs. Kanikel might just lose it. Sorry, I'm trying to share my screen, but it's taking a while to load. But you're going to want to keep your book open because you're going to need your book in order to answer the question. You must answer the question in a complete sentence using capital letter, punctuation, and restating your question. Okay, I don't just want the answer. I want you to restate your question. The question is something. It's taking forever. I'm going to read it. Just hold on. I'm almost there. It's almost loaded. So close. And like I said, it's due by 8 a.m. tomorrow. Not 8:01, 8 a.m. 8:01 tomorrow, 8:02 a.m. No, I want to do it 8 a.m.
7:59.
My luck.
7:59.
I don't want you to do that because what if you accidentally forget? Okay, it is just not loading on my screen. So I'm going to walk over to Olivia and I'm going to read off of Olivia's screen. So the question is, a hurricane does, oh, it's supposed to say goes. You know what? I got to fix that. A hurricane is supposed to say goes. I'll fix that in 1 second. A hurricane goes through a series of 4 stages as it grows. What are the 4 stages? So you're going to say the 4 stages of a hurricane goes through are blank, 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 and blank, period. And then you're going to turn it in. Use your book. Don't be spelling things wrong because it's in the book. Does anyone have any questions about what the homework is? I promise I'm going to switch that from does to goes. That's my bad. I was typing fast this morning. Any questions? If not, you're free to go. Mia, what's up?
I don't get it. Like, I don't know the 4 stages.
Okay, well, I'm 100% sure I read it, so you're going to have to use your story and go through it.
What
It literally
page?
says, I'm not telling you what page. Go read your book.
Miss Kneifel.
Yes.
So I saw the question today. I'm like, oh, in reading class, I'll have to copy that down. So I already have it all down right here. So I already have the 4 pages. So boom.
Awesome, awesome. If there's no questions, you're free to leave me. Literally, Mia, I promise. It is basically straight from the story. You just have to find it. You are free to go. That is due by 8 a.m. tomorrow. You are free to go. Make sure you're reading for AR. You only have till the 18th to get all 20 of your points.
Oh. We'll finish it before the quarter.
I know. But
We're finishing it tomorrow.
yay.
I got on my 20.